let's say I'm a buyer and I'm working with agent thus and so. Can we still do an auction? How can I do that if I'm already working with an agent?
You've got to listen to the client and see what winning looks like.
Exactly.
You got to understand every person's definition of winning is going to be different.
What are the disadvantages to an auction? Is there any type of property that you guys don't auction? Executor calls you, what is that process like for them? How does that work? They always ask, well, can they finance a property? What is the cost for the seller to do the auction?
With an open market sale, there's no real time urgent matter here. It's available for sale. It's available today, tomorrow, next week, next month.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching us today. Do you happen to have questions about auctions, how they work, the industry, how do you get involved in them? If so, this is the episode for you. I've been joined today by my good friend Jason Deel. He and his wife Natalie are the owners, auctioneers, and realtors who own JD's Realty and Auction here in Clinton, Tennessee. So Jason, thank you for doing this with me today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Shelby. You know, I've been watching your series and you've got a really cool thing going here.
Well, thanks.
And it's really cool to see someone educating the population. And I'm just excited to be here today.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the auction industry in general a little bit.
Yeah.
Kind of where it got its start and where it is today.
Well, that's a good question. Maybe a lot of people don't understand that, you know, most people interact with auctions every day. They just don't realize it. You know, one of the things that we do now is the New York Stock Exchange is traded by way of auction. And I don't know if you know this, Shelby, but the auction method is the second oldest profession in the world.
I have heard that once or twice before, yeah.
And we won't talk about the oldest profession.
Yeah, the oldest one, that's a different channel.
A different channel with some X's in front of it or whatever. But, you know, we have bought and sold things by way of auction forever, like we just have, you know, whether it's farms, whether it's fruit, vegetables, homes, of course, precious metals, anything it's been traded by way of auction, and it's survived because it works, right? And that's just what we're excited to bring to Knoxville. You know, it's our methods, our ways of marketing is we think are the most advanced, because we travel all across the nation every year, focused on trying to be better and better for our clients. So, yeah, it's a cool technique and it's a cool method.
Well, and I know, like you and I have had this conversation before. You know, there's Christie's in London. There's Barrett Jackson. If you're a car enthusiast, there's all kinds of very well-known large auction houses or auction companies that do this every day with really high-end items. And I think people don't always remember that auctions can be used for all kinds of items, all kinds of price points in lots of different environments.
No, absolutely. That's a great point, because really kind of the insurance industry, nothing against my insurance friends that are out there watching, but the insurance industry kind of put a little bit of a damper on the industry because of sales and because of forced sales. Well, at JD's, we don't really do forced sales. To your point, we find the finest assets, and we believe when buyers compete, sellers win. You know, and it's a way to be super transparent. The buyers love it because now they can finally see what the other offers were or are. Yet now you get an opportunity to see if you were beat out by $500. Right, which is always, if you're a buyer, it's frustrating if you ever found that out in a traditional sale. That if you would have just said $500 more, then you would have got the property. Well, with an auction, now you know. You know what the current bid is and what you have to do to beat it. But, you know, again, Christie's and Sotheby's and, you know, just to name a few, and Barrett Jackson and Meacham, and I mean, we believe at JD's the finest assets in the world are sold at auction. And your home is no exception.
Well, let's talk a little bit about kind of why some houses are sold at auction. How are people coming to you typically?
Yeah, no, good point. Really kind of our bread and butter, if you will, or our Big Mac, to use a McDonald's
No, I've got 2 all-beef patties going through my head, thanks.
Yeah, is really estates. You know, when someone passes away, if they're moving, and they're downsizing dramatically, and they have all the personal property and the home that they have to figure out how to sell it, how to transition. That's the majority of what we do. When mom or grandma or granddad or whomever passes away, and you're left with this massive burden as an adult to settle the estate. So what do you do first? You got to figure out how to dissolve this estate and how to sell the rocking chair and the china, and ultimately how to sell the home. And that's the majority of what we do.
Well, I know that's typically when I find myself being called in to do a listing consultation, and it's an estate, or it's a situation where mom or dad is still alive, but they're downsizing or going into some type of assisted living environment. And it's the stuff, it's the car, it's the house, it's the, I know you guys can handle weapons. It's, what do we do with all of the stuff? That's always when I call you guys.
Yeah, and it's overwhelming. It can be overwhelming because most adults only are in charge of an estate once, maybe twice in their life. And you don't really know where to go first. You don't really know the best way to advertise and to get money. And in some cases, Shelby, it's all they have. That's all the estate has is the belongings in the home. So they need to get as much as they possibly can, and we believe that we can do that for them. Yeah.
And I'm a huge fan of you guys. Obviously, I send all my ones like this to you guys, but you're able to step in because the person or people who are doing it, they either just lost a loved one or they're helping a loved one make a very difficult decision.
Yeah.
And it's very hard for them to be kind of more neutral and to look at it more objectively and to help them navigate that process.
Yeah.
So that's what I totally rely on you guys for.
Well, it is. So that's one way. You asked me what's why.
Yeah. How are they coming to you?
Another way that, people call us is if they have a home and it has some deferred maintenance.
Yes.
Right? And we all have deferred maintenance in all of our homes.
Sure.
We just do. It's part of life. It's part of living. It's part of taking care of a home. Sometimes you can fix whatever it needs to be fixed right away, and others you can't. You need to save up for it. But many times we see homes that have deferred maintenance, and they don't have the money to fix whatever that issue is. Maybe it's a fuse panel. Well, it needs to be a breaker panel now. And those are expensive.
Yes.
So maybe that's one reason if you don't have the means to replace that, maybe you'd have an auction because it's an opportunity to sell it as is. All auctions in the state of Tennessee are sold as is without warranties or guarantees. Doesn't mean you can't do an inspection as a buyer. A buyer can still do an inspection. But that might be another reason to have an auction if you don't want to put any other money into the home.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and that makes sense. I know we've worked on both of those scenarios together over the years.
Yes.
So let's kind of walk folks through the auction process.
Yeah.
When I call you or a homeowner or an executor calls you, what is that process like for them?
Yeah, so the auction process is relatively simple. We try to make it as easy as possible, depending on if there's personal property or not. If there's personal property, I'll just kind of give you an ideal general scenario. If there's personal property, we're going to bring in a team. We're going to bring a team in to photograph the items, to sort and catalog and segregate. I always say that every home has 4 distinct piles of things. The first pile is things that you want to keep. Things from your childhood, maybe, and assuming that this is your parents' estate that you're dealing with. Things that you want to take back home with you, things you want to cherish. Maybe they don't have a lot of value, or maybe they do. But it's just things that you want to keep and put in your home from your mom's home. Pile number 2 are things that we want to donate. They don't have a lot of value, but you don't really want to throw them away. A good example of that is sheets and towels and used things like that. There's pet places that need towels.
I was thinking vet clinics love towels and sheets.
Yeah, so we hate to throw those away. They don't have any value, so we can help donate those. Pile number 3, we all have it in our home, is trash.
Oh yeah.
We just have trash. This part of life, is sorting through and getting rid of the trash. Now, I would caution you, don't do that yourself. let our team of experts tell you what's trash.
Exactly.
Because what you think may be trash is in fact a treasure to someone else.
Exactly.
So segregating that. And then finally, the things that have value. The things that have value that you don't really want to keep. You don't have room for them because you already have your own stuff, right? But you need to sell. And those are the things that we help you signify what those 4 piles are. Now that process can take a week, 2 weeks. It depends on how much you have, right? Because as we know, some of our parents are hoarders.
Yes.
And some of us are hoarders, right? And it's okay, but that process can take time.
We all are. It's just how we do it is different.
Yeah, it's just what level
What's important
we
to
are.
us.
Yeah. So going through that portion, and finally, once we get everything photographed, we get it online, and we have the auction, and it's online. Once the personal property is gone, then we bring in our cleaning team. The cleaners come through and clean everything, and then the photography team comes in, and then the online auction for the home is posted. Right now, as of the filming of this series, we're doing about a 2 to 3 week marketing window.
Okay.
So within 2 to 3 weeks. Now that might change this summer. It could change this fall as well. But in 2024, the spring of 2024, we're doing about a 2 to 3 week marketing period. We'll sell the house online, and then we'll give the buyer 30 days to close. Okay. So very transparent. Again, the bidding starts low, and for the sellers, we hope it ends high, and the buyers want to meet somewhere in the middle.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and I love that you mentioned a few different times on the online aspect of this. I know people, when you hear auction, a lot of folks, they think you're going to be standing in front of that house doing your auctioneer voice.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's not the typical way they're done anymore, is it?
No, it's not, Shelby. Really COVID changed everything for everybody. And then once that happened, we really just transitioned from being in front of the crowd, in front of the yard, in front of everybody, in front of the steps of the home, to just everyone stay at home and bid from home. And buyers have just become comfortable with that, and so have sellers. So that's really, now if we have a farm that we've chopped up and we have multiple parcels, then we're still going to do a live auction. So we'll still have a crowd in front of us, but generally speaking, a single family home is going to just be done online.
It's going to be done online.
Yeah.
You've mentioned farms, you've mentioned single family homes. Is there any type of property that you guys don't auction?
No, not really. Okay. I mean, if it has value, as long as it's legal for us to sell it, okay?
Okay.
And Tennessee has a few little quirky things, right? Like the bed bug law. Like we can't auction mattresses and box springs. But in terms of real property, right now we're working on a jail, a county jail.
Oh, wow, that's interesting.
We're going to be selling here pretty soon. So, in terms of the scope of what we can sell, everything from a jail to a name it.
Hey, are you doing an open house on that? I kind of want to check that out.
We're going to, and I can't wait to see the TikTok videos that we do. It's just going to be fantastic.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, and mentioning open houses, that kind of reminds me, for sellers, one thing that I know on the ones we've partnered on, you do have that opportunity. Well, I guess this is for buyers too. You have the opportunity to view the property before the auction. So let's talk a little bit about how that's typically set up and what opportunities there are.
Yeah, Shelby, I found that a lot of people think when we have an auction that they can't come see the property, because I get people calling and saying, well, is there any way possible that we can come see it? Of course, yes.
Yeah, please.
We want you to come see the property. So we can do private showings with your own agent, with one of our agents. But the open house is really a time to come and bring your dad. Bring your mom, bring your sister, bring your
a home inspector.
Exactly. Bring your banker, whoever you want to bring. But typically we'll do those on a Sunday afternoon. We'll be there for a couple hours, and we're not going to bother you. I'm going to talk to you, but you can walk around the house freely and.
That's the time to kick the tires and see what you see, and absolutely. Well, I know there are different types of auctions. People hear absolute auction or what.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the different kinds and what they mean.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So in the United States, there's 2 types of auctions. There is something called an absolute auction, and that means that the property must change hands on the day of the auction. So if you own the property and I'm selling it, you have to transfer deed. Okay, so it has to sell. And it has to sell, meaning regardless of the price, there's no minimum bids, there's no minimum bid increments, so there's a lot of advantages and there's a few disadvantages of that particular style. The other one is just an auction. And with an auction, that means it's subject to a reserve. It could have a reserve on it. So typically we do reserved auctions. And it's not because of price, more that it is because of things outside of our control. For example, if your home was selling on September the 12th, 2001, it would be a bad day to sell it. No one cared about your home. So it's important for us to protect the sellers, to make sure if there's a natural disaster that were to happen, like we don't want to force your hand. And buyers understand that as well. All buyers understand that the sellers want to get a fair price, and that's the two major differences.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the bidding process and how that works. We've talked with people. You guys get to be at home in your jammies, grab a cup of your favorite beverage, and you're watching it online, and it is wild if you've never watched one online. It's so cool. How does that work?
Yeah, so it starts at jdsauctions.com. It starts on our website. And again, 2 to 3 weeks, we're going to start the property at $1 or $250. It doesn't matter where we start it.
Yep, matters where you end it.
Right? So the bid increments on our particular site is $250 minimum. So if it's at $100,000, the next bid is $100,000, $250. Doesn't mean that's the minimum that you have to, the maximum that you can bid. You can bid more than that, but that's the minimum. So the bidding just kind of goes back and forth for those couple of weeks, and we have what's called a soft close. And a soft close, it tries to mimic a live auctioneer as best as possible, right? So if I'm having a live auction and I'm saying 100,000, now 125,000, 125, now 150, and if I'm just going back and forth, I'm not just going to abruptly end the auction, right? So if I'm 125, now 150 sold, 125. No, I'm going to ask for 150 a couple of times. So the timed auction with extended bidding, it offers as best resemblance as possible. So if you're in the lead at 100,000 and someone bids within that last minute, the software will just add 2 minutes to the platform, if you will, and give you an opportunity to rebid. So that will just go on until finally there's only one person left standing. Now again, from the buyer's perspective, this is really nice because again, you can finally see what the other offer is. So that gives you peace of mind as well. See, I say at an auction, buyers just pat each other on the back. And people say, what do you mean, Jason? Well, I mean that the most that you can do is overpay by $250. Because you had someone standing beside of you, metaphorically speaking, but you had someone on the other side of the mouse clicking, and they said they would offer $250 less than what you're about to offer. So the most that you overpaid was $250. Look at it from that perspective.
And $250 on a home is nothing.
No.
That's an easy one, and you do feel comfortable. And like you said, I can't tell you how many times, since I'm not a licensed auctioneer, I can't, I always work with you guys in the open market and we're dealing in a multiple offer situation. I can't tell you how many times I've had to say to my client, the best advice I can give you is find that number where if you see 30, 45 days from now, that house closes for $500, $1,000, whatever your number is, for that much more than you would have paid for it, you're comfortable walking away. That's your number. Because we don't know.
Right.
You're throwing a number out in the dark and you're hoping you get it. And then you get it and you're happy, but you always kind of wonder, well, what was the next best?
Yeah, right.
How much above was I?
Yeah, was that 40,000 higher than the next best?
Exactly.
You have no idea.
No, you don't.
And it's just a really cool way. And of course, on the flip side, for the sellers, it's also a cool opportunity because they get a chance to see the buyers compete in real time. And for the first time, you can counter more than once to more than one person.
That's also very
weird,
true.
Right? That's weird. Like, how could because in a traditional setting, you can only counter one person.
Yeah.
You can't counter both because you can't be talking to two different people. What if both accept? Well,
Exactly.
Then you got
Then
another
you
problem.
can't ride two horses with one backside.
Yeah, right? But with an auction, you've got multiple people competing, and you're basically countering multiple times at the same time. So, anyway, it's just it's a really
kind of cool.
Yeah.
So that kind of, I was going to ask, what are the advantages? I think we've kind of touched on those.
Yeah.
What are the disadvantages to an auction?
Yeah, I mean, the disadvantages are you could have a bad day. Like it could just be a bad day for whatever reason. And sometimes I just can't explain it. We've had a handful of times where we've had bad days. Other, elections going on. I mean, there's some things that can affect the sale of your home, whether it's at auction or if it's at a traditional open market sale. The cool thing with an auction is we have a date. We know when the house is going to sell. Well, we know what the value of the home is on that day. But if you have a bad day, then that could be a disadvantage and you don't sell it, or maybe you got a little bit less than what you wanted. There's not a ton. There's not a ton of disadvantages, because if there were, then I wouldn't be in this profession.
Exactly.
And
there would be no open market.
No.
Everything would be auctioned.
Yeah.
So another question I get asked a lot when I'm talking with either prospective sellers or buyers who call me, and I actually had one who called me, hey, I don't know if you know this website, it's JD. I'm like, yes, I know it. Yeah, they always ask, well, can they finance a property?
Good question. So with an auction, with our company, and most companies do the same thing, we have a sale with contingency free. And maybe we should take a minute to kind of explain some of that.
Absolutely.
With an open market sale, we're going to see the big three, I call them, right? The big three would be an inspection, financing, and then ultimately an appraisal. So these are kind of the big three that we see a lot. Now, you see others in the open market. Maybe it's a contingent upon the sale of their home.
Sure.
Maybe they still want to come see it. They're out of town. They make an offer contingent upon them being able to walk through. So there are other contingencies out there, but those are the big three. With an auction, we don't recognize any contingencies. But again, that doesn't mean you can't do any of them. So if you want to do an inspection, have one. You can do one before or after the auction. It's really irrelevant to the seller because they're selling it no matter what the inspection says. So it's up to you. We encourage people to do them before the auction.
Yeah, that way you decide whether you want to bid or not.
So you know.
Yeah.
The appraising financing, I think we all know that the bank is going to want to have a third party, someone else, tell them what their opinion of value is on that particular day. So you can still have an appraisal. It's just not contingent upon what that number is, right? So you can still do that, no big deal. And then finally, financing. You can still get financing, it's just not contingent. So if you bid and win, please don't go buy a car or open a credit card account or do any of those types of things.
Buy a digital camera the morning of closing.
Yeah. These are all real stories.
I'm like, don't ask me why that's my example.
Yeah, well. And talk with your loan officer. I will tell you, Shelby, that 80 to 85% of the properties we sell, there's financing involved.
Sure.
It's a very much a misnomer that people think that auctions have to be cash deals. Now, let me caveat that by saying if you're bidding on auction.com, some of the REO properties and some of those foreclosure properties, it's an all cash deal.
Those are different.
Right?
Yeah.
You got to show up to the courthouse with a cashier's check. But we're not talking about those particular types of auctions.
I'm glad you used that example because that's usually exactly what I say. I said, guys, there's a difference between a courthouse steps auction and an online auction through an auction company.
Yeah.
Courthouse steps, you're going to show up with a check. That's the max you're going to be willing to pay. If you end up getting it for less than that, you will eventually get that difference back. It won't be that day typically, but you're handing over a check.
Yeah.
If you're buying online at an auction, there's typically, are you guys typically about 30 days?
Yeah.
Okay.
30 days. And here's what I'll tell you. because there's several other, I mean, you guys are watching this from all across the country. We're specifically talking about Tennessee rules, and we can talk about specific state rules and laws. But check with the auctioneer. Like, get online, you see a home that you're interested in, read the terms and conditions of the sale. Because every company might be just a little bit different. They might have a buyer's premium, they might not. They might require a down payment of a percentage. Others may require a flat amount that's, that they want to pay down. So just read. All the information will be right there online for you. But then ultimately pick up the phone and talk to the auctioneer.
Yeah. Let's talk about buyer's premiums and down payments a little bit, because I know I've had that question a lot. People get them confused.
Yep, they do. So, and thanks to Christie's and Sotheby's, they figured this out back in the 1600s. A buyer's premium is a way for us to conduct business and offset the cost from the seller and have the buyer help pitch in. Essentially, it's what it kind of works out to be. And we agents and auctioneers, we have to feed our families somehow.
It's helpful.
Right? So that commission, and I think we'll talk about other agents involved here after a while, but that's a way for us to help each other and help feed our families, right, through that buyer's premium. The down payment is something completely different.
Exactly.
You're going to want to check with an auction company, whatever, hopefully you're buying with us, but whoever you're buying with, and find out. A lot of companies will say it's $25,000 down. You got to bring out a check on the day of the auction, but just read those terms. But a buyer's premium works a lot like if you bid $100,000 on a piece of property. If we have a 10% buyer's premium, let's just say, you're going to pay $110. And then for us, if we're doing a $10,000 down payment, non-refundable down payment, remember those no contingencies we talked about. So you'll write a check for $10,000. That's going to leave you a balance of $100,000, and we're going to give you 30 days to pay that balance. You'll still go to a title company. You'll still use an attorney to close. There's no real difference there.
And I like that you kind of threw in the reminder, guys. If you are doing an auction, it's kind of where I caution my buyers. If you are a first-time home buyer and you're stretching budget to do, the auction may not be the way you want to go for your first buying experience, because that down payment is not refundable. There are no contingencies, ergo you cannot decide 3 days later you don't want to do this anymore. You can't have a home inspection and then decide you don't want to do this anymore. You can have the inspection, but you cannot use it to terminate a contract, which in open market, that can happen. So I always tell people, you don't have to have it all in cash, but you have to make sure you understand the financial implications of what you are committing to do.
Correct.
And the buyer's premium, again, please read. Every listing I've ever seen, whether it's JD's or some of the other local auction companies that are in the area, are very good about explaining, hey, here are the requirements for this auction. So that you know going into it, okay, the day of the auction, I'm going to have to be prepared to hand over a check for X amount of dollars, and I will not see it back. Okay.
Yep.
I'm prepared for that. It makes the process so much more fun and so much easier.
Well, yeah, so understanding what you're getting yourself into, and it's the law for us. We have to disclose. We want you to understand, and that's why if you call, if you're a buyer and you're not represented and you call our company, I want to slow down and I want to spend an inordinate amount of time with you to make sure you fully understand the rules of the game, if you will.
Exactly. It makes it. I always tell people I would rather spend those extra 10, 15, 30 minutes on the front end than to be spending 3 hours on a back end. So we've kind of talked about it from the buyer. The buyer brings the premium is added to the price. They put the down payment of whatever that is. What is the cost for the seller to do the auction?
Yeah, I'll give you in general nothing, zero, in general. The commission again is kind of offset with the buyer's premium. Typically, Shelby, depending on the type of property, we're going to ask for the sellers to make an investment into marketing. And some people might think, well, Jason, if we do a traditional open market sale, we don't pay for marketing. No, Generally you don't, but sometimes you do. It depends, right? But with an open market sale, there's no real time urgent matter here. It's available for sale. It's available today, tomorrow, next week, next month, 3 months from now, it's available. But with an auction, it's ending in 2 weeks, right? So we need to ensure that the aggressive marketing campaign is happening. So again, depending on the value, I mean, we've invested as much as $50,000 in marketing, depending on how big the project is. And as little as $1,000, you know. But where we spend the majority of the marketing is on social media, YouTube as it were, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We use all the social platforms to help promote that property. So the cool thing about JD's though is, again, for the most part, you don't pay anything out of your pocket. We front the expenses for you, and then at closing, it's just a reimbursable expense to us.
Just comes out of the proceeds, so it's not a check they're having to write directly to you.
Exactly, yeah.
So we touched on it earlier. Let's kind of circle back a little bit. Let's say I'm a buyer, and I'm working with agent thus and so. Can we still do an auction? How can I do that if I'm already working with an agent?
Yeah, you know, Shelby, that's a great question. We are right now about 30% of the auctions that we're doing is partnered with another agent outside of our firm.
I love that.
Yeah, it is really, really cool. And to your point, most agents, they don't understand. Like it's like, well, I guess I want to lose the listing. Or, gosh, I wish there was a better way to help my clients than the one method that I have now. They just don't understand that. So what we do is we've got a couple of different methods. You know, when Agent X gives us a call and says, you know, hey, I've got kind of this situation, I've talked to Shelby or I've talked to any other agents that we've worked with in the past, and they say maybe to give you a call. How does this work? And I said, well, how involved do you want to be? That's the first question I asked them. Because I really want the Megans of the world to understand this process. Like I want you to come hang out and really, really understand how you're going to help your client. Not you. I don't care about how you're helping you. I want you to know how you can help your client solve their problems the best. Right? So it's a partnership. I mean, we literally partner with that other agent. We do open houses with the other agent. We have the other agents help us put signs up, take photographs, coordinate with the cleaning crews, make sure the dumpster's on site. I mean, learning that process. Because at the end of the day, it's about solving your client's problem. And it's about having the right tools in your toolbox to be able to solve their problem. And this is nearly a monkey wrench. So there's a lot of different ways you can twist and turn it, you know. But it's important, I think, if you're an agent, it's important for you to understand that it's a partnership. Like that's what it is. I want you to. Now, do we have referrals? Yes. You can call me and say, Jason, call Mrs. Smith. Let me know when it's done, and I'll say, Shelby, send me a referral form. We can do that. But I really love it when agents want to learn and get involved and understand the process.
Well, and that's, speaking from the agent side of that, I'll never forget the very first one we did together, and we had just met totally unrelated to real estate, like the week before, 2 weeks before. And I was going out to do what I thought was a fairly standard listing consultation for a personal friend of mine, for a family member of hers. And I got to this house, and it was a situation, elderly owner had been unable to take care of some of the routine maintenance things, and was going to need to transition into some type of an assisted living environment. And the house needed a lot of work. And I remember standing there going, okay, this is karma. This is like, everything came back together because I had no idea about auctions. And I remember reaching out to you going, do you think this is something you might be willing to do? And you were like, come on, sister. I've got you.
Let's go.
And you literally let me walk beside you every step of the way.
Yeah.
And so, guys, as an agent, that's huge, because now I am totally comfortable. It does not matter what situation I walk into on any kind of listing. I can size it up pretty quickly and go, you know what? I really think my client is going to be better served if I get out of the way. And I make a phone call. Jason and I come back out, we walk it together, and we strategize, how can we best serve? And, you know, I'm a firm believer in, if you do right by people, everything works out. And it does. And it's like, it's so many more tools that I have in my tool belt now because you took the time to teach me. To say, hey, we can do this and we can do this. Or, well, what about if we try it this way? Or, okay, well, do you think, would the sellers be willing to maybe do this and this, but not this, but this will make it better? And having those extra eyes and that extra experience is just invaluable.
Yeah.
And, you know, guys, from the agent perspective, I just typically fill out a referral form and send it to you, and we handle the paperwork we need to handle, but we're a partnership. And we walk through it hand in hand. We even we group text with the client, so we're all on one page.
Yeah, Shelby, and that's important. Like, I want agents to understand that's your client, and that still needs to continue to be your client. You're bringing me in to help you solve those problems. So, again, that's why I think the partnership works.
It's great.
Like, you can walk away and tell the client, you deal with Jason now, Jason's going to take care of you, and I'll do that. But that's not my preferred method. Like, I really want you to get the credit, you to work with them. You're solving their problem, and I'm just there kind of, yep, let's do this one, let's not forget about this, and let's do some of this, and, you know.
And there have been a few times we've stood in a front yard with someone and been like, how do we need to strategize to help make this happen? Because at the end of the day, it's about serving the client and what they need and getting them from this point A, so to speak, to the point B that they're aiming for. And it's like, okay, how can we help? And, you know, especially at estates always, because there's so much stuff.
And it's so different, right? Every one of them is different. Shelby, you just said something that was profound. You said...
Oh, wait, note it on the calendar.
Yeah, write this down. You said to point B where they want to get to just now. I think as agents, sometimes we get confused that we think that we know what point B looks like.
Oh, I don't have a clue what point
See,
B
we don't.
looks like.
Like, we don't have a clue. Like, we don't know. But I think if you actively listen and you hear them say, and in auction school, this is what I teach to all brand new auctioneers. You've got to listen to the client and see what winning looks like.
Exactly.
You've got to understand every person's definition of winning is going to be different. Sometimes it's just speed. Sometimes you've got to get this thing sold. It needs to be sold quickly because of X. Dad's in a nursing home. He's out of money. The house is still in his name, which means TennCare's not going to pick up yet. He still has assets. We need to sell this so we can keep, right?
Yep.
Sometimes it's not speed. Sometimes it's about the money, but yet we know we can listen to the client. We can see the property. You know where Gay Street's at in Knoxville? Do you know there was a condo on Gay Street that was sold at auction? The very first condo that was ever sold on Gay Street. We sold it about 6 months ago. Do you know that the client lived in California? And she said, Jason, I just want to get as much money as I possibly can for Dad's condo because, you know, we just need to, we think it's a nice place. I said, it is. And I said, I can list it for you traditionally, but I think the buyers are going to compete. And when they compete, you're going to win. And I think I can get you about 50 people interested in this thing. Really? Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say is you want to get as much money as possible. And I'm hearing you say you want to be transparent. You want to know what all the offers are. Okay? I think an auction is the best way to do it. We had 98 registered bidders.
Holy cow.
It sold for $680,000+.
Jeez.
For a two-bedroom.
For a two-bedroom condo.
It broke every record of everyone ever sold on Gay Street for that size of a condo.
Wow.
And I truly believe it was because we listened to the client. We recognized what winning looked like to her. So just
And
gotta
I've
listen.
had some clients that, and guys, this is not necessarily related to auction. This is just, Shelby's soapbox for 3 seconds. It could be speed, it could be money, and sometimes it's just they're overwhelmed. And they just need you to come in and take care of them and do right by them. It's the stress management, for lack of a better way to put it, that is the point B for some clients. And that's why I'm like, I don't necessarily care. I actually was doing a consultation this morning with some repeat clients, and it was a husband and wife, and they sat down at the table, and the husband looked at me and he said, I have a dream. And the wife's like, he's got lots of them. And I said, okay, tell me your dream. Well, we ended up with 4 different scenarios. And he was like, I don't know what to do. And I said, okay, right this second at this table, I don't know which one of these 4 is going to be best for you either. So let's explore all 4. Let's see. And so sometimes until you sit down and you have that conversation with your client from California, you don't know. What is their end point? What does winning look like? I love how you put that. What does winning look like for them? So what have I missed about auctions? What have we not talked about?
Well, I'll tell you, Shelby, we get a lot of calls from agents that have buyers.
Okay.
And they're looking for a piece of property. And God bless you, agents that are searching, and you're working long hours, I know, and you're working so hard for your client. And you're trying to find them a piece of property that best suits them. And listen, in light of some recent changes with NAR and some of those things, clearly we're all moving to show 0% commission that we're going to be offering as far as a co-op. But I'll tell you to check with the auctioneer. Call the auctioneer, call the auction company, and ask them, are they offering some sort of co-op? Are they offering compensation at all? It's probably for a different discussion, for a different podcast about NAR changes and some of those things. But I will tell you, for all the agents listening, 99% of the properties that we're going to be offering at auction, we're going to help offset your client's cost from the buyer's representation. Generally, it's around 20% of the buyer's premium, generally speaking. But that changes, that shifts based off of the property. So call the auction company, talk to the auctioneer to see if there's any compensation being offered. Because that's what we're doing now. Like, NAR said, we got that negotiation has to happen outside of the MLS. And that's kind of what we'll do.
Well, and auction in general, plus what we've been, facing with some recent changes, I keep thinking of the word transparency. It's all about being transparent. It's all about having those conversations. It's like we used to be really good at that. And then somehow keyboard courage kind of became a thing. And I was in a meeting yesterday, and I was really glad to hear some agents say, you know what, this is making us go back to doing some things that we never should have given up, but COVID kind of forced us to. We're getting back to those conversations. We're getting back to being as transparent as we possibly and legally can about things. And that's never a bad thing.
No.
For buyers, for sellers, for agents, for brokerages, that's never a bad thing.
Absolutely. Just you're fighting for your client. You're trying to do right by your client. And I'll tell you, because auctions are a little bit different, and they can be weird. For the first time, I've had agents that they've said they've been in the business for 25 years, and they've never had a client that they've worked on with an auction.
Really?
And I said, well, let's talk.
Yeah.
I will always stop what I'm doing, if I can, and take your call. And listen to you and help guide you through the process. Because ultimately, agents, what I want to do is educate you so you can go back to your client and provide that education to them.
Exactly. Well, and it's a win-win. Like, you educated me, so now the first time I walk in and I'm like, could I sell this? Yeah. Should I sell this?
Right.
Maybe a different question. You're always, 9 times out of 10, I'm literally sitting with my client in front of me, and I say, will you give me a moment to text my friend Jason? I'm like, because I really think he could come see this with me, and the two of us together could offer you a better strategy. And I'll answer their general questions. I try not to get too deep in the woods because that's your area. especially when they start asking me about how the personal property gets handled. I'm like, oh, so outside my lane.
Yeah.
I know his team comes, they do a bunch of stuff, they help you sort it, they take pictures, they do homework and research, and outside of that, I'm...
you get a check and it goes away.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not going to quote you anything. But it's like, it's amazing to me. And of course, I'm going to literally be sitting there on someone's sofa. That's how we got our flip. I was sitting on the client's sofa. Do you mind if I text my friend Jason? Yeah, and I think it was like the very next day or 2 days later, we were sitting on that sofa, because usually you're great about within 1 to 2 days, especially if you're not in town, we might have to wait till the next week. Or Natalie has gone, I think, once, and we make it happen. But I don't want agents to be sitting at home, listening to this, having their cup of coffee, going, well, that's great, but I met with a client today, and I don't want to have to wait, a week to go back out.
Oh, no. No.
Yeah, none of us want that.
No, I will leave what I'm doing to come talk with you. And that's so important, Shelby. You've touched on it a couple times. Is when the first time I meet your client, I would love to meet them with you.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Like I would love for that warm introduction. I'll do it if you can't be there, I will show up. But it's always great to have a team meeting.
Well, exactly. It's so much smoother. It makes you feel like you're walking into some environment with a friendly face. Your client doesn't feel like you're walking in and they've never met you.
Right.
And then you get to, as the agent, you're hearing the entire conversation, and you're already picking up and you're learning. And I remember that first conversation on the very first one we did. I was just like a little sponge, because I was like, I want to learn it all.
Yeah.
I was like, teach me all. Yeah. Is there anything else, any advice for buyers or sellers, anything that we haven't talked about?
Education. That is the key element in anything new outside of the norm, right? It's just educate yourself, understand it, call me, please, text me. I will be happy to sit down. And listen, agents that are out there watching, if you want me or someone from my team to come to your firm and provide an overview, we do that.
Oh, awesome.
Like we have a little, I don't know, it's like 15-minute presentation on how we can help you solve your client's problems. And that's what it's about. Whether it's personal property, whether it's partnering with them because the listing is about to expire, or maybe you just walked in and you're like, oh my gosh, this is definitely, we got to sell this as is, or oh my gosh, I can't wait to put this thing on the market because I know we're going to go into a multi-offer situation within the first 20 minutes. You're going to have an auction anyway. So why not make it transparent to help your clients, right? So.
And you just said something that triggered, and it went into my brain and then it went out. I need to stop gap on this side. That made me think, oh gosh, that was perfect for something I was thinking of, and now I've lost it. Come talk to agencies. This is so unprofessional of me on YouTube, and I've lost it.
That's okay.
Oh well. Sorry guys, welcome to Real.
Welcome
to Real. Yeah, I totally lost it, but it was something I was like, oh my gosh, I meant to say that and I forgot. But
it's okay.
It's okay. I'll think
She'll
of it.
put it in the comments.
Yeah, if I think of it, I will. I won't text you at 2 a.m.
No, you can't. It's okay. I'll be up. Yeah, it's all good.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for coming and doing this with me. It is always a pleasure, my friend.
It's been fun.
And guys, if you are looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate in Knoxville, I know we've talked a lot to the agents on this one, but if you are looking to do any of those things, please feel free to give me a shout. I would love to have a complimentary consultation with you and see how I could help you out or how we could help you out. The best way to reach me is probably by email, and that is Shelby@brookshomegroup.com.